In the vortex that lays beyond time sleeps a dragon whose ruin was brought about by the abandonment of their god. But in the ashes rose a new order, the Golden Order. Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be covering Placidusax. I still have no idea how to pronounce it. Placidusax? I don't know. And the Ancient Dragons. But we'll also add onto my last theory about Queen Marika, the Beastmen, and their origin. And possibly the origin of the Golden Order. This theory went a little wild. So if you haven't watched the last video, please do so. I know that video is a bit confusing, but a lot of the context for the theory in this video will come from that video, and hopefully it will become clearer on why I think Queen Marika and Malekith came from Farum Azula. But before that, I have an announcement. I am now a real YouTuber. That's right, aside from the amazing support from you guys, this video is sponsored. And I bet you guys can guess who the sponsor is. That's right, the one, the only...
Introducing Gamer Bread, the world's first high-performance bread made for gamers. It's got an ambidextrous grip, strengthened fingers, and improved dexterity. And when you're done, fuel up with maximum caloric density for maximum focus. Dual functionality flash cools your...
Oh, stop. Sorry, wrong clip. That was my pitch for the next thing that should replace NFTs. The real sponsor, who fully funded my new GPU by the way, is of course Raid Shadow Legends. I'm sure you've heard of them before. Raid just celebrated their 3-year anniversary, which gave players gifts, new content, events, champions, artifacts, and even a personalized video showcasing their players' journey and achievements. If you're watching this at the time of its release, then there's still time to hop in, but even if you aren't, they still have more special events and tournaments with new updates coming, including some of Raid's best prizes on offer, including badass champions, piles and piles of shards, and tons of other goodies. Raid is huge already and there's never been a better time to get started. So check my link in the description down below and scan the QR code on the screen and you'll get a free starter pack worth almost $40. This includes 3 champions, Misericord, Tiger Soul, and Romero, 10 Magic XP brews, 10 Force XP brews, and 10 Spirit brews. They only gave 1 champion in the past, but for this event they're giving 3. All this treasure will be waiting for you when you click the link in my description down below. Thanks again to Raid for sponsoring this video and my new GPU. But back to the video. In the last video, we already took a tour of Farum Azula, so we won't be repeating that for this video. But we will track back on the important parts where dragons are involved, mainly Placidusax's domain. And before we even talk about Dragon Lord Placidusax himself, let's talk about the ancient and the modern dragon. The key difference between these two dragons are their scales. Ancient dragons still embody the stone scales, while the modern dragons no longer have stone scales. Modern dragons are also more akin to wyverns than actual Western-style dragons, as they no longer have 4 legs. Due to this, modern dragons are seen as inferior to their ancestors. Even the living ancient dragons themselves see them as inferior. Losing their stone scales also makes them more susceptible to being corrupted by certain elements such as glintstone, which creates glintstone dragons, and scarlet rot, which created whatever the name of that dragon was. Who names these dragons? God damn. Unfortunately though, these don't necessarily make them stronger. Azula, Izix, and Borealis, I am so sorry, I botched all of those, I'm sure, but they were beaten by the current denizens of the lands between, intentionally or otherwise. Azula, the glintstone dragon, was bested by Rani and swore to her to be a knight, a dragon knight. Izix was infected by the scarlet rot in Caelid. The ice dragons and possibly also Borealis were beaten by the fire giants, so most of the modern dragons have been losing a lot of battles. One of the reasons this may be is because the modern dragons lost one of their most powerful tools, which is the red lightning that the ancient dragons possess. But they are still fierce and some are intelligent like Azula, who is able to assess battles accordingly. though this might be attributed to her time with the Carian royal family as a dragon knight, until the time she must give her life to protect her master, Rani. She is also capable of casting sorceries, which is pretty interesting for a dragon. There are also much more modern dragons than ancient dragons in this age, and it seems like Grail, the mother of all dragons who we can find in Caelid, gives birth to dragons without stone scales and are bipedal. Speaking of Grail, she is known as the mother of all dragons. She is an elder dragon who may have had power in the previous age, but is now but a husk slowly being consumed by the scarlet rot. Though she is still protected by her offspring, she herself can no longer fight except for a vicious scream that pops one's eardrums. Though Grail is an elder dragon and probably an ancient dragon to boot, she only gives birth to modern dragons who are bipedal. So the number of ancient dragons are dwindling as time goes by. There are still quite a number of ancient dragons though in the lands between, for ancient dragons live eternally, so they survive the changing of the age, albeit far diminished. The few ancient dragons we know of are Lanciax, Fortisax, the 4 unnamed dragons in Farum Azula, Grail, and Placidusax, the Dragon Lord. Ancient dragons are fierce, powerful, intelligent, and cunning. When we fought Lanciax, she would flee if we proved to be too strong for her, and should we chase her down, she would fight us in an area with Fulgur Bloom, allowing her to make better use of her lightning attacks. Fortisax forged a friendship with Godwyn, letting bygones be bygones as they were losing the ancient dragon war, which is a decision that may have well ended the war and saved their race. Not to mention creating the ancient dragon cult within the capital, ensuring peaceful relations, and growing the influence of the ancient dragons. Indeed, if not for the actions of Fortisax, the ancient dragons may have very well be extinct at this point, due to the war. Now this war may have been caused by the actions of one dragon, the ancient dragon Grandsax, and I have a theory later on why he may have started that battle. The ancient dragon was powerful beyond belief, and his body still lays in the capital city of Leyndell to this very day. Grandsax was a calamity that had started a war with the Golden Order. Its fury was so intense that his attack is the only one in history of the Golden Order that managed to break the walls of Leyndell. And it even forced the 3 Sentinels to adapt to this attack by malforming their armor in an attempt to become the dragon themselves, to better protect the Erd Tree. This attack marked the dawn of the ancient dragon war. It is unknown how Grandsax was defeated, but if I had to guess, I would say he was defeated by Godfrey, who was likely still Elden Lord at the time. The Dragon War continued though, and even the other ancient dragons participated in the war. Fortisax had demonstrated his lightning spear against the Golden Order and was called the mightiest Boulder Stone. It is likely that he held the war together until his defeat to Godwyn the Golden. But instead of being slain, he was offered the hand of friendship, which he accepted. Though it is said nowhere, I believe it was this friendship that ended the war. The question is, what could have caused Grandsax's fury? What caused him to attack the royal capital of Leyndell? Well, in order to theorize on that, we have to head to Farum Azula, where we are to meet the Lord of the Dragons, Placidusax. But before that, a quick tangent on the Magma Dragons, because they technically aren't in the same stock as the modern dragons and the ancient dragons, because the Magma Dragons are created from those who partake too much of dragon communion, which is eating dragon hearts at a cathedral. If you eat too much, you eventually become a Magma Dragon, which is a very unique species of dragon compared to the other dragons that we have. So I won't get too much into them because they kind of fall on a different category. So instead, let us go to Farum Azula. Within the vortex of Farum Azula, we would meet the Lord of the Dragons, Placidusax. He is a 4-headed dragon and possibly one of the most powerful beings within the lands between. For he was no mere dragon or even dragon lord. He was an Elden Lord, before the age of the Erd Tree. His domain was over time, and he is able to manipulate time to a certain extent. Even his chipped off scales had this capability, which allowed the forging of god-slaying weapons. His home within Farum Azula is a vortex within the center of the crumbling city. This vortex lies beyond time itself, making it nearly impenetrable. Only through laying in an open grave next to the vortex can we even enter this land beyond time. Once we do enter this vortex though, we would see the Dragon Lord in his eternal slumber, awaiting for the return of his god, a god who fled, which we will get back to later on. It is also here that we are able to bring out the full power of Miquella's Needle in order to ward off the influence of outer gods. It seems to me that the Dragon Lord fled here in order to hide away from an outer god, which again, we'll come back to later. But perhaps the reason for this is because this area is beyond the domain of the lands between. Do also note that the map here is actually just because the arena itself is placed high above Farum Azula. It may be a lore thing, but I'm leaning more it to be a game level arena thing than being a map positional thing. In any case, the Dragon Lord we face here is not him at his full power. He has already lost 2 of his heads, and his scales are slowly crumbling away. His body is covered in wounds, though this isn't surprising as he was an Elden Lord, and like Godfrey, may have been tasked with fighting for the god that he served. It is well established in the lore that the paltry warriors and creatures of today are weak compared to those of the past, and this is greatly reflected on the wounds of this Elden Lord. His power is something else. His breath attacks spew golden flames, and when concentrated is able to focus as laser beams that do immense destructive power. He is able to manipulate time while fighting, disappearing in a puff of ash and reappearing elsewhere instantly. He can transform his whole body into a thundercloud to come crashing down at you, and his mastery of the ancient red lightning is second to none. He is even able to use the Bolt of Grandsax, which I imagine could be the very same bolt incantation that the ancient Grandsax used to destroy the walls of Leyndell, or maybe even Grandsax borrowed this power from Placidusax, truly a being worthy of the title of Elden Lord. Alright, now it's time to put the theory caps on. Now what's a little odd is that he indeed held the title of Elden Lord. Now Elden Lord here is a little weird because in the Japanese translation, and please do correct me if I'm wrong about this in the comments down below, but in the Japanese translation, I believe it's called Of the Eld. So if you're an Elden Lord, it's kind of translated to like Lord of the Eld, which may be the lands between itself or something like that. I am not 100% sure because the translation is a little difficult since I don't speak Japanese. But basically what I'm trying to say is Elden Lord may not necessarily be a title that refers or requires the Elden Ring, if that makes any sense. Now the reason why I even bring this up is because he was an Elden Lord before the time of the Golden Order. In the Elden Star's incantation description, it is said that the Greater Will sent a golden star bearing a beast into the lands between, which would later become the Elden Ring. I also checked the Japanese translation of this as well, and it is indeed correct. We know that this beast is probably the Elden Beast, since the Elden Beast is what appears from the Elden Ring when we fought Radagon. This means that the Elden Ring may not have existed before the time of the Golden Order, or at least before the time that the Greater Will was involved with the lands between. Since the Golden Order really technically only started when the Rune of Death was plucked from the lands between. But when I say Golden Order here, I mean the order of Queen Marika herself. Which is why I brought up the Elden Lord thing earlier, because even without the Elden Ring, an Elden Lord could still exist. Because the Elden Ring was only created during the time of the Golden Order. And Placidusax was the Elden Lord before the age of the Erd Tree, which is the age of the Golden Order. And if that's the case, why is there a depiction of an Elden Ring in Farum Azula? This depiction could give us a small timeline of events, which is what I want to add to my last theory that Queen Marika, vessel of the Elden Ring, is from Farum Azula and may have been chosen by the Greater Will. Now, a lot of people in my last video pointed out that the Numen came from the Eternal Cities, which is indeed somewhat true. We hear this from Rogier, but he didn't exactly say that all Numen are from the Eternal City. In fact, he never even mentioned the Numen. His exact wording is that
they say the assassins who carried out the deed were scions of the Eternal City, a group entirely of women, arrayed in armor of silver under cloaks which fooled the eye.
The association here is that the Black Knife assassins are Numen and have close ties to Queen Marika. But the wording Rogier used is scions of the Eternal City. The literal meaning of scions, according to Google, is a descendant of a royal family. Now, I have no doubt that Queen Marika is indeed an Eternal. Her title, Queen Marika the Eternal, may not even be due to her longevity, but could be her origin. But what does her being from a royal family of the Eternal City have to do with anything? Well, in our history, marriage between royal families have often been used as a way of brokering peace. What if the royal family of the Eternal City, who were Numen, brokered peace with Farum Azula? Since technically Placidusax and Farum Azula were the Lord of the Lands Between, since they had the title of Elden Lord. So the Eternal Cities brokered peace through marriage. Remember in my last video, my theory was that there was a royal family of humans who ruled Farum Azula, alongside Placidusax. This is depicted by the statues there, and thanks to some comments in the last video, I changed my mind about these being Numen. Well, at least half of them. I believe these humans were Draconian, which is one of the playable races at the start of the game. The problem is, this race is short-lived. One of the ways they could fix that is perhaps marrying and having offspring of a race that is long-lived. Which race is that? Well, the Numen. Do you kind of see where I'm getting at now? What if the king or queen, or maybe even Placidusax himself, since you know dragons can transform into humans, married a Numen king or queen and had a child? A child whose body is made of stone like the Draconians, but long-lived like the Numen. A child destined to be a god. But this child could have also been an ill omen, because this child was an Empyrean. The outer gods would vie for her strength. The Greater Will would send down the Elden Beast, and it could even have been the beast's arrival that tore through Farum Azula. It's not all that weird because the Elden Beast has displayed some of the abilities of beings like Astel, the natural born of the void, hence why items like the Ruin's Greatsword exist. Not to mention, the Greater Will also used similar tactics to destroy the Eternal Cities. Placidusax may even have fought the Elden Beast, which may have caused his injuries. And before you even type that comment, I'm aware of the theory of Godfrey being the one who caused Placidusax's wounds, but I'm going for a different direction. In any case, the Elden Beast may have beat Placidusax, even though Placidusax could kill a god because his scales are capable of killing gods, and due to this, the god that he was serving may have fled, causing the Dragon Lord to retreat beyond time, to wait for the return of his god and seek revenge. The city of Farum Azula would start crumbling to time, but slowly. The royal family would surrender to the Greater Will and give it Queen Marika to be the vessel of the Elden Ring. The Greater Will would gaslight Marika so she would grow up to become the queen she is today, unaware of her true past, which eventually would lead her to leave Farum Azula and abandon her birthplace. She would set up the city of Leyndell and the Erd Tree and would eventually declare the birth of the Golden Order upon the removal of the Rune of Death. This would also garner the ire of the ancient dragons, as she had effectively abandoned her birthright, which may have caused Grandsax to attack Leyndell and start the War of the Ancient Dragons. The Eternal Cities would even attempt to slay the Fingers, but the Greater Will would send down Astel to destroy the Eternal Cities. The advance of the Golden Order, though, would continue until the day she found out her history and the truth of the world, as mentioned in one of the churches of Queen Marika, and she would plot her revenge against the Greater Will.
In Marika's own words, I declare mine intent to search the depths of the Golden Order through understanding of the proper way. Our faith, our grace is increased. Those blissful early days of blind belief are long past. My comrades, why must ye falter?
And the rest is the game. But as always, remember that this is just a theory. It may or may not be true. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Does my theory have any shred of truth to it, or is it all way too out there and I may be smoking some copium? I recently made a community post to thank all the subscribers to the channel for helping me reach 30k, and I would like to thank you guys in this video as well. So thank you very much. If you liked that video, be sure to hit the like button and comment down below to help with the algorithm. And if you're new to the channel, do hit that subscribe button if you like what you're watching. Thank you to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video, and as always, thank you for watching.